Hi everyone, so we are ERDA Strategic HR and Communication Consultancy, me, ZANE, and PÄRSLA,
Hi everyone.
who are continuing our discussions and talks on the HR topics that we find particularly important in these troublesome times. And today we are very excited because we will be sharing results of a very fresh survey that we just carried out over the last 2 weeks, covering all 3 Baltic states. And
ZANE, why we decided to make that survey? I think it is important to mention that as well.
Absolutely. So basically, ever since the beginning of the emergency state and the lockdown, we saw our clients and also friends and partners who are immediately implementing series of different kind of HR related measures. But all of them were not sure whether they are doing the right thing. You know, all of them were asking, are we doing too much? Are we doing too little? What are the others doing? Basically, how can we benchmark some of the things we're doing? So basically, we wanted to understand what's actually happening. You know, how many companies are laying off their staff? How many companies are taking salary cuts or cutting down the working hours. And B, we wanted really to get some of the specifics. If you are cutting down trainings, by how much are you cutting them down? So basically, we wanted companies to give some of the benchmarks that would help them to orient their actions, basically.
So we ended up actually having quite a long list, right? So I'm going to share it now.
Yes. Before we do, I'll just mention that there was a total of 106 companies that took part, and we do realize that the answers are changing, or replies are changing as we go. So a month from now, companies will paint a completely different or slightly adjusted picture. So it's our ambition to be able to have a second and third round of this survey to see what additional activities are being implemented, how some are expanded or contracted. But so let's dive into the main part, and the main part we will be discussing now with PÄRSLA by asking each other questions. So the main part actually, and the part that we will discuss with you today has to do with implemented activities in response to COVID. And I think the best way to do it, we have quite a bit of additional data, and we don't want to go into details right now, but I would like to start by just asking PÄRSLA to comment, let's say, in your opinion, those 3 that you found most surprising or most worrisome.
Yeah, actually, the question itself is interesting because, as you can see, none of the activities are matching like 100%. So it means that companies were not always, or not all companies are doing the same activities. And that is so explainable because we have different industries, we have different level of impact when it comes to the health crisis we currently are at. And it also kind of shows very nice trend line in which have been the activities which are the most popular. No surprise, I think everything which is connected with the making sure that employees are healthy is number 1 and 2 activity, right? Both transforming the work to the remote and at the same time adapting the new hygiene and health habits pretty much speaks about the same thing. So taking care of employees being safe has been number 1 activity. And you might kind of wonder if the other 30% were not doing that, we would still probably think that they had already put those activities in place. When we have talked to our international customers, we also hear that specifically those organizations who are belonging to a larger multinationals and who had the representation somewhere in Asia, they were having good plans and some activities in place already before the situation got worse over here. So what we believe in it pretty much that everyone was doing that, but the data shows that 3/4 of companies were recently adding the concern around the employee health.
I can also add that when we asked particulars about adapting new hygiene and health habits, most of replies had to do with physical safety and physical safety only. So conducting temperature checks, ensuring disinfection devices and liquids, and so on and so forth. What we hear more and more, and which we believe will be a topic from now on, is mental health, because remote work is having its toll. Add to that general uncertainties and the psychological environment where people are dying, people are getting sick. Nobody knows what exactly will happen. So it is having a big impact. And we saw in the first week that employers were reporting up to 30% productivity drop as a result of remote work. That might be the first effect of people getting accustomed, still being very worried and continuously reading news, but we don't think that it automatically will go back unless you purposefully work on that, and we will talk a little bit about it further on. What else, PÄRSLA, you found surprising or interesting?
I think connected to the fact which you just mentioned around the mental health, I am a bit worried about seeing how much of the engagement activities companies are currently taking out, right? All the team building projects, and at least the companies who were marking that they are cutting the cost on a team building or engagement, were saying that they are cutting it out like 100%, which means that at the moment when this becomes the most critical, meaning how do you make sure that your workforce stays productive and engaged if you cut everything, meaning it is a new situation for all of us, and we will never go back to where we were. So how do you make that transition smooth is something which I would challenge, looking at the cost lines, which are on the top priority. From the other side, what we also see quite nicely is that companies are putting in place new communication channels, which might somehow then replace the engagement activities companies used to have. But still, I would be very cautious of thinking that a new Slack tool or Zoom tool or whatever tool will replace the engagement activities which companies used to have. So this is a moment of worry, to be honest.
No, absolutely. And I think this is a general trend, looking at the data and the specifics of each, and also discussing them with our clients. We see that very short-sighted approach to cost cutting. Basically, oftentimes it is carried out by looking at Excel and without much of evaluation, just cutting out everything that seems to be a little extra without understanding what is its impact, or you know, both in the short, medium, and long term. And my worries are actually about the training cuts, because I think it's absolutely clear that world will never be the same, that it's already extremely challenging to work in the new environment as of now, even more so looking, you know, half a year from now, a year or two. So in my opinion, training should be substantially increased, and I think the new tools allow the access to, you know, to global content, also in respect to trainings. There are micro trainings, there are all type of international mentoring coaching. There is tons of also even free online courses from Harvard or you name it available. But just to choose to cut it to zero until things get better is definitely one more trend that I find worrisome.
And to be honest, we were asking the companies also to put down if they are cutting it down or if they are replacing certain activities with other activities. There were very few, but organizations were mentioning that they are looking into the more cost-effective solutions, both for the communication, but also for the training area, which, yeah, historically has been quite cost-heavy.
PÄRSLA, what do you think about hiring? We see that that's the fourth most popular activity, almost more than half. So 56% has completely freezed hiring.
Yeah, that's my favorite, to be honest. Still remember the previous crisis where companies also pretty much stopped hiring immediately, with some exceptions though. And those exceptions were more about how do you raise the productivity in organization by replacing poor performers with maybe some external talents out from the market. And that is where I actually see the opportunity, right? You can't change everyone or you can't continue developing your headcount like before, but you can still look at the performance of the people you have in the organization and maybe make some tough decisions, but at the same time, this is a great opportunity to get the talents in, meaning, and the talents you would never have access to. Now you do. So this is definitely an area to consider. Actually, another fact out of the survey was also that we asked companies if they are looking for super talented employees to join their forces now. And out of all 106 responses, only 9% were positive about this. So this is an opportunity for sure.
Absolutely, as we say, amongst ourselves and openly, this is a chance to fire two, poor performers and hire one amazing. And we didn't have that choice, of course, even half a year ago. And in that respect, I'm also quite surprised about how short is our memory, because we remember last crisis, 2008-9, leading bit in 2010, and we lost as Baltic nations also very many people that emigrated to work in other countries. And then 5 years pass and we are ready to invest whatever in repatriation, re-immigration, in campaigns, in employer branding, just to get anyone back, just to get anyone to fill or vacant positions. So it will come back. So just what you do now will guide your future, and one should approach it, I think, wiser than last time, I would say.
One question I wanted to ask you, because otherwise you just keep asking questions to me, is what we pretty much see that companies are choosing two paths. Either they reduce the headcount or they keep people, maybe reduce their salaries and look for the potential to retrain. What do you think? What would make sense from the strategic perspective?
Well, I was actually pleasantly surprised about the percentage of layoffs being actually at this point, and I'm telling you, things are changing overnight. But layoffs are actually not that widespread, and I think it's in part due to the fact that governments have come to support, with different kind of initiatives. It also might be connected with the fact that Baltic states are less affected health-wise, economically, of course, on the same level, but health-wise less. So kind of the general level of the optimism or pessimism might be slightly different. So companies are willing to wait out until further notice, which is the end of emergency state. So I think that is wise. I think that's why we see a combination of work hour cuts and salary cuts, and we see that basically 20%, 29%, 20% have cost working hours, and 29 the payments, or vice versa, no. So 20% have reduced base salaries, most of them by 20 to 30%. So that's kind of the average we hear. And then total
was 28%. Yeah.
28% have reduced working hours, which is just another way of cutting salary budget, basically. And there we saw that many are reducing up to half time. So basically they're cutting their salary budgets in half. But it's still better than laying people off without, strategic approach. So I'm actually proud of Baltic employers, at least in this respect. You see that they are trying to find the way out, and we've heard a lot of solidarity expressions and policies where everyone accepts equal cut, where management accepts even bigger cut. But again, these are anecdotal cases. Whether that's in all companies remains to be seen. But I think as for now, and waiting for the next announcements on emergency state, it's probably the wise thing to do.
What I think we will always be able kind of to look at is what other countries are doing. And quite recently, I think it was yesterday or day before, I read an article about the Sweden where, the airplane companies, they had to let everyone go because planes are not flying anymore. So what they had thought about in Sweden was that flight attendants are actually super good candidates for becoming nurse assistants, because in order to kind of qualify for the flight attendant, you have to do the medical exam. You need to know how to handle difficult places and cases. And now there are plenty of ex-flight attendants becoming nurse assistants. I think this is also something we both as a country, but also in the organizations can look at. Meaning, is it really the case that you need to let go, or you can strengthen your workforce based on your current needs? But I think we need to move on a little bit and deep dive a bit in the cost. So what I will ask you, maybe ZANE, to elaborate a little bit is where to cut. And that is a question I think everyone has. So I'm going to switch the slide because we have prepared a little bit, and then maybe you can help us guide that slide through.
Yeah, so basically, again, it depends. There's no magic equation, 20% this, 40 this, then this, and you're good to go. Basically, each company is different. What we are suggesting to our clients is really to put it down in the form of, axis, where you do look on one axis as for what is the benefit and impact. Okay, it's very easy to cut, a small thing that seems like an extra, but what if the benefit or impact of it outweighs its costs? That's the way you should be thinking about it. So on one axis, you should put the benefit and impact. You should look at what is the strategic relevance in the long term. Okay, I'm gonna fire 20% of my staff, but strategically I have big plans for expansion and new products and this and this. So basically you look at long-term needs. You look at the mentioned cost saving and productivity gains. Does it really make the difference? You look at the business impact in the immediate setting already, and you do look at, this is the part that, of course, we have been fighting for last 4 years and longer already. You do look at the impact on employee experience, because we see plenty of studies from Gartner as well that meaning all cost-cutting measures do have major impact on employee satisfaction, on employee engagement, and also on productivity. Oftentimes employers these days use the wording staff morale, but even when you have to go for hard measures, which are layoffs, there are, one have to be able to explain why you're doing it. You have to do it well. You have to communicate it with people who will be laid off and people who are remaining, because the stress level goes substantially up also for remaining team. So benefit impact is on one axis, and then on the other axis you have to look at basically how much it costs to implement these measures, both time-wise, cost-wise, risk-wise. So how much directly will take money, how much, in what's the term, how quickly you can implement those. Can HR, is HR able to support this kind of cost-cutting measure? And also, do you have a stakeholder buy-in or the opposite? So whether you will, try doing that and fail because, you don't have the support.
Resistance. Yeah, exactly.
So yes, so both of these. So now, of course, it doesn't answer directly your question, but it's the way to think about it. So all we want to suggest is you shouldn't just look at the Excel and randomly try to find anything that you think you will not feel in any way, and then second step, go just for biggest positions and see how much you can cut without dying straight away. So this is not the way to approach it, and this is what we see oftentimes, as I told, in the approach of financial directors who see it very technically as an exercise of mathematics rather than actual business value and strategy.
Yeah, not all the times, right? But what I think is important that we kind of add to the cost initiative side is that you need to look for both the long-term effects and short-term effects. And the ones who will be able to balance them the best, those will be the ones who will come out in the best shape also from the crisis.
Absolutely.
One topic which you also mentioned in relation to cost cutting, and I cannot agree more, meaning we see it even in our own company, is employee engagement, meaning it does tend to drop because people just feel so, I don't know, disorganized suddenly, right? It's not the way it was before. You stop having certain things, or you need to change the ways you work. I think we were also looking into this engagement topic as something which will become more and more important for many HR managers now in the coming days, weeks, and months. So what we were looking at was those 6 areas of engagement focus, which we all believe are critical for employees to really feel valued and loyal to the organizations. But there are 3 which are super important. ZANE, can you maybe help us to get through those?
Yeah, I will start with the first one. Well, first one obviously is a topic close to my heart, which is communication, and I think this is something that all of us now see, looking at our leaders in the states, or governments. How critically important is the regular, or I would say ongoing communication from the leadership, saying both good news, bad news, being transparent, sharing scenarios, scenario A, scenario B, scenario C, and being okay with the fact that they change also overnight, and that you have to come back next day and say, listen, this is out of the roof, things have changed, and this is the approach that we are currently taking. And as PÄRSLA, you always say also, better bad news than no news, and this is definitely not the first time, and it's a widely known fact that friend indeed, or a friend in need is a friend indeed. Basically, these are the moments that are true tests of company culture, of leadership capabilities, and you can strengthen engagement of and loyalty of employees like in no other time. So basically, in a way, it's a major opportunity, and we've heard many cases. Partially, you have experienced yourself. You can do major layoffs and see how engagement, both from the ones who are staying within your company and from the ones who are leaving, increases. Why? Because you have been honest, you have taken care of people as much as you can, you have not burned the bridges. So basically, and it's all about, or a large part of this is about communication, yes.
Absolutely. Just to add on, and I think it's also in the bullet points, what we see many companies doing is organizing Zoom meetings or other meetings where kind of management speaks to people, not with people. And that is quite a difference, to be honest. And as people, or yes, you guys who are listening to us and seeing us, that is just one thing. Check if those communication channels you have, are they just one way, or you really can make sure that people can respond. I think it's like the most critical thing to really keep the engagement on the level it should be at.
Absolutely, and we see, even in our own, company, it's the type of questions that you oftentimes get is something that you would never imagine. People deal with all sorts of, weird, not even weird, but unimaginable questions for how to do not only their work, but they have all the other worries that relate to their families, to the fact that they are part-time teachers these days. They are concerned about their health. They want to understand what is business strategy from now on, or in long term. Do we even have a future, or what will happen? So I think it's this two-way communication is also critical, and many companies are not equipped to do that, neither technically, thinking about their current communication channels. Internet dying out already for years, but now I think officially being useless. But also I think in respect to culture, in respect to how much managers and leaders have gotten used to that kind of open communication with everyone.
Yeah. We have two more on the list, and I'm a bit aware of the time, so I think if we just go through them, it would be perfect, because both of the rest two.
Yeah. I will quickly skim through, and partially you add. In respect to roles and goals, this is something that actually we saw as a big problem already leading to the situation. Meaning we've had huge problems in our Baltics with productivity levels, and this it's not about individuals, I would like to say. It's about systems and processes. And what I found surprising for all these years is that there are so many companies that still don't have clear KPIs for every single employee. So imagine it was a problem already before that, but now everyone is at home, or many are at home. Things are happening completely different. So it's become a double problem. Roles are changing. Many companies haven't had KPIs. There's no way for managers to control directly by checking on in the office who arrives on time and who doesn't, and what exactly they are doing that day. So basically, we do believe in the independence or the trust that you have to give in these remote work situations to employees, but it's only possible if you have given a clear KPIs, have described their role, their goals, and then it works win-win way. If not, it's a complete disaster, and we see it in the productivity drop that I mentioned before. So it was low already, and now it's gone down for additional 30%, as many are reporting. Yes, and
it's interesting that all the work structures we actually have nowadays are set up in a way that people are supposed to work in team, meaning you rarely are supposed to deliver something just by yourself. So that pretty much also links together with the third priority, which is employee networks. And I believe it's easier for the teams who have been working together for a long time. They have already found all the connections they need, so they can also kind of normally function without any supporting tools or systems in place. But imagine those companies who still need to hire new people. How do you build that network? Meaning they don't know anyone and they can't see anyone. So that is definitely a high priority, actually on the same level as the other two. How do you make sure that managers understand what kind of employee networks they are supposed to build, and how can HR or communication function support the business with the right tools and right processes for the networking?
Absolutely, and it's important to understand that remote work is here to stay, and not because it's cool or everyone enjoys it, or everyone enjoys it. Most of us, I believe, don't. But the health situation in respect to pandemics is bound to be a reoccurring, and we first have to even fix this one. So. This on and off mode will become a new reality, A. B, what we hear already from our companies, they have suddenly understood how much the office space costs, so we have already first cases of clients, international clients, that have decided to close all their office space during this time and just come up with a showroom, so smaller prices for team interactions in the future when it will be allowed. But they are reporting huge potential savings, so that it will be also financially guided decision. And thirdly, definitely it is taking a time to get accustomed, but those companies who work on remote work basis for years now and as an only option, they are reporting good results. So basically, there are also many benefits. So yes, and in that respect, everything you said, PÄRSLA, super important and increasingly important.
Yeah, I believe we have covered quite interesting combination of cutting costs and remaining engaged. So I think we have one last wish for everyone, right?
No, yes, as they say, never waste a good crisis. Of course, it is extremely stressful and worrisome time, but it is also a time of major opportunities, both for new businesses, but also for just sorting out processes, tools, ways of working. You can look at this time as also a very interesting and exciting time that allows us to get onto a different level altogether.
Yeah.
No, thank you so much.
And we definitely talk to you again one day.
We will be back in 2 weeks with more in-depth topics, some of which we raised here. Thank you so much. Keep safe.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.